Welcome everybody, I'm Jonathan Delda Strand, I'm the community manager for Haxity. With me today I got none other than a game director, Thomas Eulogy Sørensen, and we're going to talk about basically how we make cards, right? Yeah. So before we start,
the vision of the game as well, I guess.
Yeah, a little bit about the game and how the vision, yeah. So just start, why are we making this game at all?
Well, a lot of us have a background in card games. Played a bit of Magic back in the days and started playing Hearthstone over time, and started playing multiple different card games. And I got really interested in the digital card game, how they work, or the digital space for card games. I think that brings sort of a new dimension to what you can do with card games, as opposed to the older, more traditional games. And I think there's also a lot of unexplored potential there, which I guess I wanted to explore.
Yeah, so that's why one of the reasons why we're creating Haxity, just to create something new, something fresh. Like you said, I come from an extensive card game background, playing professionally and everything, and it's a breath of fresh air, basically. Yeah. So what basically defines Haxity? What's our basic design pillars?
Yeah. So I guess we knew pretty quickly that we wanted to make a PvP game. So that's sort of one of the big design decisions. Straight up was PvP card game. We were inspired by fighting games as well, so that sort of brought the whole PvP aspect to it. 1v1 PvP, character based. The other one is drafting. We'll talk more about that in a later video, exactly how the draft process goes in our game. But it's a very sort of core part of the game, and it's sort of influences all our design decisions throughout the game, really. And then there are the two sort of big ones we're going to talk about today. It's the evolving cards, or game state, which is basically that since we're making a digital card game, we can do a lot of crazy stuff with our cards. They can evolve, they can change over time. You also have a character, which is you, the player, which can also, gain buffs and change a lot over time. And a lot of those things, we'll get more into that later, but a lot of those things you can't really do in an analog card game. So that's like one of the big things. Then there's, feeling overpowered. Yeah. So, I've always sort of felt that when I have the most fun in a card game is when I feel like I'm doing something completely broken.
Just broken stuff in general. Yeah.
You fill a board with minions and they have all the keywords in the game and stuff like that. I guess I'm a bit of a Timmy player.
Timmy player, yeah, exactly.
That was sort of one of the things we decided pretty quickly, because some games we played, they're sort of balanced and fair, but it doesn't feel, you don't get the sort of, oh my god, I can't believe I just did that feeling. And that's sort of key to this game, I think.
Yeah, creating memorable moments.
Memorable moments, definitely. Yeah. Those heroic last-minute saves, those one-shots, kills, the crazy things.
Yeah. Yeah, and as I played Haxity a lot now, I feel like the feeling of feeling overpowered is good, because you get these memorable moments to do these crazy combos, these crazy strings, but you also don't get it all the time. Yeah, and then that comes back to what you.
And that's sort of I think that's where the sort of two pillars of drafting and the feeling of overpowered, they sort of complement each other in a very good way, because you can't expect to have the same super powerful crazy deck all the time. You have to adapt, and you have to pick the cards that make the most sense for your deck. And I think that's sort of one of the ways we've made it possible to create these completely ridiculous combos and plays, is because you won't see them on ladder or in a constructed format all the time. You might one match meet an opponent that has this insanely crazy deck, or you might get one yourself. But the next match, or the you know, when you're done with a run and you start a new match, it's fresh. So you won't get the same thing. You won't meet the same thing, and I think that's sort of one of the big driving forces we had behind the game, was that we were getting pretty fed up with like stale meta games, games that didn't change over time enough. You know, you play the same meta deck or counter decks all the time on a ladder, and I think by having this draft-based game, you'll always get, you know, a fresh new deck, a fresh new twist. It's like, even though of course there will be sort of when you have certain cards, you'll of course look for other cards that complement them. But when you don't get them, what do you do then? How do you sort of adapt and optimize your deck? And I think that's also, we talked about this before, but that's I think that's one of the things that separates like a great player from a good player. Like a good player will sort of, oh, I know like these cards are good together, and you know what to look for. A great player knows when he's not getting the combos or the synergies he's looking for, and how should I adapt my deck. The drafting process.
Like a lot of people, when they draft, like at least in other games, they do like a tier list. This is the best card, and always pick like, oh, this is tier 1, so I always pick it. Yeah. But a great player will see like, oh, this tier 3 card is better than the tier 1 card in my deck, and the whole dynamic there will change.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes, I mean, we are doing like, I guess we haven't revealed exactly what we do with the game modes yet. Yeah. But we're definitely doing a versus mode. And a lot of that's just a teaser, I guess, is that, you know, counter picking your opponent is a big part of that. It's basically like picking, you know, oh, this card is not necessarily the best for my deck, but it's great against the opponent. So should I pick the one that's best to further my game plan, or the one that's best to counter your opponent's game plan? So there's a lot of that as well.
Yeah, so that's an interesting prospect to go about. But let's look a little bit about the cards, like evolving cards we have here. So first up, we have Hotshot. You've seen Hotshot in the Carperson video, and we used it also in the gameplay video. It's one of the first, actually, mechanics we made? Or?
Yeah, I think it's when we were in paper prototype after like iteration X of the game. But when we sort of, this version of the game, when we were in paper prototype stages, I think Momentum was one of the first mechanics we introduced, because it's sort of a very simple mechanic. It's basically Momentum 4 reads, after you execute this card, gain +4 damage. Yeah. But it has a lot of like synergies with other, you know, you can increase the amount of momentum you get, you can, you know, give it replay and it plays again. There's a lot of like these synergies you can create, but it's sort of the simple, this card just gets better by itself.
Yeah, no, that's an interesting thing. Like the first time I saw this card, because I came in later in the development, came in and tried this game out. It's like, well, and coming from both the paper background and the digital background, it's like, well, this doesn't work in a paper setting, because if it was like if you play a lot of games, this is a one-off. Of course, you can work in a paper settings, but you can have like 3 of these in a deck.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's like, how do you track which one is 12 damage, which one is 16 damage?
You would, so we did paper prototype this, right? Yeah. And we basically had these like paper pieces that we put in, and we wrote the new numbers on it, and it was a maintenance nightmare. But it was sort of like when you're paper prototyping, you know, you need to test what you're aiming for, and we were aiming for a dynamic game where the cards change over time. And it was a good example of why you want this in a digital space and not in an analog card game space. Yeah.
So just take a quick look how it looks in the game when you play it. Brain juice. So let's move to the next card though. Yep. we have something called brute force, which reads draw one hack, finisher, give it echo.
Yeah.
We haven't explained echo at all, haven't we?
I guess we've
and finisher as
talked about finisher, have we? Well, I don't remember. I'll explain.
Yeah,
okay,
explain.
So you have 3 slots you can play the cards in, and the finisher slot is basically the last one, the rightmost one. So the most powerful effects you usually get in the last slot, it's sort of something that comes from the fighting game wrapping, where you have you're sort of building up a combo and then you finish him with a finisher.
Yeah.
So if this executes in the last slot, it has this additional effect that happens. So brute force, by default, it will draw you 1 hack, and finisher, it gives it echo. So echo, what that does is that when you play the hack, it creates a new copy of the hack.
Okay, yeah.
So basically it's a value card, right?
Yeah, it doubles your hacks, basically.
Yeah.
So you saw there at the end there, you just get like the all slow, but it draws from your deck, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, or your hack deck.
So if you're out of hacks,
yeah, it doesn't do anything.
It doesn't do anything. So it's sort of it has higher value early than later in the game, of course.
And then it fits in a deck that drafts more hacks and being more maybe a control A style because you want value instead of the more rush now. So,
yeah, it's a good value card.
Yeah. Next card is Roid Rage.
Yes.
We showed it a little bit before, but this is like getting a deep dive because this is something special as well. Adjacent attacks gain 3+ or +3 damage.
Yes. So adjacent, it basically means you optimally want to play this in the middle slots.
Yeah.
And then it gives the neighboring moves +3 damage. Once again, it's something that modifies the stats on the card. It's nice to have it digital, so you don't have to track it yourself. Of course, it's really great with multi-hit attacks, where if you do 2 hits, I mean, it's basically +6 damage. And it has sort of this slightly weird twist where since the cards execute in order, you will execute 1 card first, then this, and then it will buff the previous card and the next card. So you will get only half the value
this turn,
but you buff 2 cards. And there's a lot of like sort of interesting play there because you can go for, so sometimes because you have the swaps and you can swap the cards around and stuff like that. Sometimes you want to make sure that you get the damage now, so you like swap it before. If you can't have it in the middle slot, because
it's not always happening.
Your opponents will probably make sure you don't get to play it in the middle slot. So sometimes you want to put it before, so you actually deal the damage. Other times you want to swap it afterwards, so you sort of stack up damage on the move that you want to use, that you want to buff up, really.
Yes, it's really interesting, and it's a lot of, we will talk about like card balance and stuff, but there's a lot of knobs to turn with cards like this because it has so much variety. But let's see, it has a card that we're going to show with it as well. It's one of the hacks of Carperson.
Oh yeah.
Override Fire. Replace one of your moves with a ranged Override Fire. So how does this work? Like, this is a hack, not a card.
Yeah,
so,
this is a hack. So in the hack phase of the game, it's basically you play the hack, you target the card that you want to swap out, and it creates a new card, which is the Override Fire, and places it in that slot. Now, the Override Fire, it's 4x2 shot or ranged attack.
Okay, so it's a multi-hit. Yeah.
So it's a multi-hit. This actually used to be just a straight up 8 damage shot. But we figured that with sort of this like multi-hit theme of Copperson and all his like plus damage buffs and stuff, the moment we changed it into a multi-hit, it became a lot more exciting. Because suddenly you can have like a move that gives your next move +5 damage, or like Roid Rage, which gives +3 damage, and then that's doubled since it's a multi-hit, basically. So it sort of suddenly got a lot more exciting than it used to be with a sort of like a flat 8 damage move.
Yeah. So it's basically a wave, because when sometimes you don't slot in a ranged attack, and then your opponent has a skill attack, and then you just need to counter that skill. It's just a way to just do it in the hack phase instead. So it's a kind of cool way to always manipulate the flow of battle with hacks.
Counter melee.
Counter melee. Yeah.
Give me your worst. Yeah.
So next card on the list is from one of the characters. We haven't said much about it. This has been a punching bag mostly.
Yeah.
This is from Dr. Rats. This is one of the 3 characters we have so far.
So without saying too much about Dr. Rats, he's a crazy scientist, and he has a lot of crazy experiments.
And rats, of course.
Experiments and rats.
Yeah.
And crazy.
Yeah. So seeing like Copperson is mostly modified like in the more mechanical sense with like mods and his arm and everything.
Yeah.
Rats is more like a evolved mutagen form of evolved.
Yeah.
Modifications.
So he does experiments. He evolves. He has his rat minions or his swarm attacks, as this is.
Yeah, so this is a breeding ground, gain a random bonus. So what is a random bonus?
Okay, so this is one of the sort of crazy digital cards that we talked about, where a random bonus, it's lists, it's pretty big, sizable lists of bonuses you can get. You can get +1 hit, you can get double damage, you can get lifesteal, you can get replay, which basically means that all the other effects will happen once again. So having stacked a couple of effects and then get a replay, it's going to do some damage and perhaps even heal you up to full. You can get debuffs like weak and vulnerable and stuff like that. Similar stuff.
Okay.
So it's basically I think it's like most of the positive effects that you can get in the game, no negative effects. So it's not like you won't get the feel bad moment.
Because it's a bonus.
Yeah, it's a bonus.
So it's basically
I've experienced that in other card games where there's a chance, and we actually had that on a card previously, where there was a chance to get a negative effect.
Oh, yeah.
And it feels so horrible when you get that. When you execute your card, you should feel good. Yeah,
exactly. So it's basically a little bit like momentum, just regain a random keyword.
Yeah.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah. So all of them will be good, but there are of course, there are levels of good. And I guess this sort of ties into Dr. Rats. He's more of a random character.
Yeah.
It's not like all random, but this is like it's a rare, and it's one of his weird sort of random, very random cards.
Yeah, he's more chaotic, I would say. Yeah, chaotic. Yeah. So with this, we also have something called Rip. So create and draw tear.
Yeah.
So so you just basically an 8 damage melee attack and create draw tear. What's tear?
Yeah, so this is basically our little rip and tear.
It's a good pun. Yeah. So rip and tear the card up. Yeah.
So tear is a hack that gives plus damage.
Okay.
So it's basically a way for you to stack up on value or resources where you can stack up on hacks. What's sort of interesting about this is, well, you can use it as plus damage, but rats also have a couple of multi-hit lifesteal moves, which means that you can get a pretty sizable life swing out of this.
Yeah, sustainability. Basically.
Yeah. But there's also the value in when you're passing the hack phase back and forth, you have an extra hack that you can gain, so you can gain initiative and sort of go back and forth and basically stay in the hack phase.
Yeah, because when you pass the hack phase, it's over basically.
Yeah, exactly.
Your opponent can do whatever he wants. So playing a cheap hack that doesn't really drain your resources is always
it's a good hack to start with, because if you're in a winning position, you don't want to do anything, you have your swaps or your powerful hacks, and you don't want to waste any one of them, it's always good to have a tier. You'll very often see me open with this, and even on a move that's not about to be executed.
Yeah.
Just to sort of okay, your turn.
Yeah.
Because then you also might start thinking, wait, are you gonna swap that in somewhere, or so there's a lot of mind games you can do with stuff like this, and I think it's sort of a very simple card, but I like these cards which there's a lot of depth to them.
Yeah. Much. So let's take a look at breeding and rip.
I'm prepared. Are you?
And then we saw the breeding grounds gain vulnerable. They won't execute this time, but it's basically on the card next time.
So it's the same as momentum, right? Yeah. That you won't get the bonus this execution, but you get it next time you execute it. And I think that's sort of usually by the randomness design. We want to make sure that it doesn't really affect this resolution that much usually, which means that because you get the effect the next time you execute it, which means that the opponent, he can see that, wait, okay, you have these like things on the card, I really need to counter this, because that was another thing we had a lot more of previously, where it was give the next card a random bonus, and what that does is you're not sure if you should play around it or not, because if you get bonus A, it's not that bad, but if it gets bonus B, it's really bad. So there is randomness, but we sort of try to control it so you have an opportunity to play around it.
Yeah, it's a really good way of doing randomness in general, controlling randomness. Next one is maximize potential. This is one of the cards when I saw them really stood out. It's like this would be hell to have in the paper format. It's give a random move in your deck replay.
Yeah.
And your deck is basically all the cards in deck and the cards in hand and the cards in play. So
yeah, exactly. So I mean, in an analog game, you would basically have to like shuffle everything together, pick a random card, and then like
put a counter on it,
and then try to reset the game state to where you were.
Yeah.
So it's basically any card can get replay. Did we ever talk about replay? I don't remember.
A little bit, but you can go through it again.
So replay is basically you just play the card again. So when you execute the card, you execute it once, and then you execute it once again. So if this lands on breeding ground, it's a good example. It executes once, it gets the bonus, but then it executes again with the bonus.
And then it gets a new bonus. Yeah.
And then it gets a new bonus. So there's this test deck I made, which is like lingering around, which has a lot of replay effects and breeding ground, and it's giant Timmy pile.
It's just when it executes, it's just crazy.
Yeah.
Can it get replay on itself?
Yes.
Okay.
It can.
Okay. So, but let's just say statistically wise, like you have maybe a 15, 20 card deck, so it's like to hit exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So it's not. You're not.
It's not consistent.
It's not consistent, and this is sort of more of a. This is jank, right? Yeah. This is your. So I think breeding ground. It's intended to be more of a fun than or a fun card than a super powerful card. Like it's powerful in the right circumstance, but it's more intended to be fun. Because if the sort of I'm gonna say, yeah. So like. Because you need to execute it many times. Now there might be cases where you know the game goes long and you can execute it multiple times, or you have the sort of I have a replay hack that I can actually play on the card, so you get sort of you play it once and then you get two effects, which then makes it a good card.
You ramp it up faster.
Yeah, because compared to other cards, by default, it's not a good card. It's a bad card.
Yeah, it's like it's a little bit better than your average like.
It's actually like, because it's 7 damage. So
that's exactly less.
Yeah, so it's actually below, like it's both in damage and it doesn't have any effects by default, so it's pretty bad to play it the first time. The second time it's going to be on par or perhaps a bit worse. Third time it's when it's going to be
really good. Yeah.
Good.
But then it's also the same with the momentum card because when they are at 3, suddenly you have taken a lot of damage. So it's a good payoff.
Yeah. So hopefully it's not going to be like super overpowered, but I think you can get some really funny, like crazy experiences of it.
Yeah.
And you might hit that, one crazy deck which makes it work and makes it happen. But the opponent can't play around it.
Of course.
Because if you stack a single card and it's like the one amazing Hail Mary, like crazy card, then, I just play the counter cards.
Of course.
Yeah.
The other one is also Ambush Rats, which is replace one of your moves with a ranged Ambush Rat. So this is similar to Override Fire, but that's a different flavor because it's rats. So.
Yeah, exactly. So it's the same. It's pretty much the same, right? It's Dr. Rat's version of that. So each character is going to have their overrides.
Yeah.
So each character is they have a primary RPS type.
Yeah.
Like Copperson is ranged.
Yeah.
Rats is skill, and Banshee is melee. So they're going to have their primary, and then they're going to have their off color as well.
Okay.
So there's going to be one color they don't have an override of. We also have similar type of hacks. We're actually came up with one the other day, which is also going to be themed around sort of their character mechanics. So each character is going to have, or I guess most hacks are going to be in a shared pool, but each character is going to have their specific hacks, which are sort of themed around what they do. Like Copperson is going to have a momentum hack, which is
his keyword,
his special keyword, etc., etc. And this is Rat's version of that.
Yeah, let's see it in action.
Let me show you my genius!
Yeah. So you see, so Rat's version is 2 times 3, and Copperson has 4 times 2.
Yeah, so it's better scaling, but worse, like right
up front. And that sort of ties into Rats is more his rat-based attacks have more hits usually, but usually less damage.
Yeah. Really interesting. Last, we will have a pretty cool hack. When I saw it, I was like, what is this even? And that's shuffle. And it's shuffle all played cards.
Yeah. So it's sort of your Hail Mary.
Everything goes wrong, and I just need something.
Everything goes wrong, and I just pray to RNGesus. And you shuffle your cards get shuffled, the cards in play, and your opponent's cards get shuffled, and you hope you win the RPS, basically.
Yeah, let's see how that looks in play. Yeah, that's quite something though. It's like, as you said, it's the Hail Mary. Yeah. It's generally something you can't count on, but it's like last ditch.
Yeah. Effort. I mean, if you're losing everything, then at worst it will be the same.
Yeah. We were actually talking a little bit in the office about it. What if you have a game mode where every end of hack phase you just do shuffles, just for fun, just like, well, your decision doesn't matter. But yeah. So that was the card we're going to show. There's just a little bit about evolving cards in general. But we have a few more things to talk about.
Yeah.
There is like the thing, like evolving cards is important. There will of course be cards that don't evolve and are more like your cookie cutter normal cards.
Yeah, I mean, of course there's going to be a standard, just 2 damage cards, or make you invulnerable for 1 hit, or the more standard straight up heals, those kinds of cards. I guess what we're showing off is a lot more of the interesting cards, which has a lot of play to them and sort of synergies. There also, I think so one of the things we sort of have always aimed towards is to have multiple playstyles. I like broken combos. That's sort of my play style. Just do stupid stuff and try to make it happen. But made sure that there are, you have your big beaters, you have your aggro strategies, your more mid-range strategies and control strategies. They don't really, we always try to keep that in mind when we made the cards and when we made the sort of the system. I guess one of the interesting takeaways is that in our game, since it's so different from what we're used to in other card games, we had to think completely different about how those strategies work and how we can make sure that you have those strategies or something that's similar to those strategies in our game. I think one of the interesting one of the employees, he had this big dumb beater strategy where he had lots of heavy hitters for Copperson, which were slow, and he drafted a lot of fast hacks and stuff that counteracted that, or basically drafted a bunch of drawback, big heavy moves, and they just made them fast or suppressed them or did stuff like that. So he didn't scale at all. He just did a lot of damage.
And right out the get-go.
Yeah, with every move. And I think that's a really interesting strategy. It means that there are multiple ways to play the game.
And since this is a deck builder at core, you can basically, you can think I want to go this kind of way, but if the game doesn't give you, Haxity is immersive. You're at the Haxity's mercy, basically.
Yeah. I mean, you're gonna if you're gonna try to force a strategy, you're probably gonna fail horribly most of the time, and sometimes it will happen. But you probably want to sort of try to adapt to what you're given and try to find sort of the best lines based on the cards you're presented.
Yeah. So adaptability, be able to adapt to both your opponent and your own deck is one of the key things we look at for a competitive player. Right?
Yeah. I mean, that's sort of it's really what separates the good from the great players. Basically, it's how or the bad from the good even. But it's how good you are at adapting.
Yeah.
It's not only knowing the cards and knowing what to play around or what to expect, but it's being able to see, okay, this has a lot more value now that I know who I'm playing against, or my strategy isn't panning out. How can I save my deck? How can I make this work? To pivot, basically. Sometimes you see basically a carry card, a card that's oh, this is a build around. I have some of the components which make this card work, and then you basically pivot. So I think there's a lot of interesting aspects that the deck builder brings to this. Yeah,
it's really cool to see. So just this practical info, how many cards do you expect we have at early access release?
Yeah, so early access we expect to have 60 cards per character, 3 characters for early access. Then there's a set of character specific hacks. We haven't decided exactly on how many. You are cropping up as we speak almost.
What's game design in a nutshell there?
I wrote a couple of new hacks on the way here. So,
exactly.
And then there are there's a pool of shared hacks as well.
Swap and fast and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, and we don't have hard numbers on those yet. I think it's sort of figure out. We have a decent amount of them. We're probably going to make more, and then we might remove some as well. That's sort of to make sure that the balance is right.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, and in general, so 60 different cards, different play styles, and of course you mix match everything.
I think you said different play styles, and if I may, I want to add something to that. And I think so. We talked about a character having a primary style, or Copperson is a ranged character. That doesn't mean that your strategies are going to necessarily be ranged with him. It means that he has the most powerful cards, and most of his powerful cards are in ranged, but he also has a lot of powerful cards in the other. I know when I say powerful, it's
build around space.
Or actually, it's the most damaging cards usually.
Okay, yeah.
So the biggest hitters, most of the biggest hitters are in the ranged, but he's off color, is basically red or a melee. So he's gonna have a decent amount there, and not as many in the third skill color.
Yeah.
But there are build-arounds in skill as well. It's more about what you can expect when you meet Copperson. But I just want to say that there's like, even though, you know, he has the ranged multi-hit and the you know, the melee brawler and the momentum builds and stuff like that, I think we have many more both build around me cards and strategies for each character, and we try to make sure that each character has a lot of different playstyles, and you will always be able to find like, oh wait, there's this one card, can I make this one card work in my deck?
Exactly. It's like, let's say Corpus has replay card, works really good with momentum, but it also works really well with, for instance, heavy hitter. Yeah. And just like, so something like that.
Yeah, or
in general, replay is just good.
Yeah, but okay, so he has, we haven't revealed this card, but he has Nootropics, which gives his skill replay.
Yeah.
Skills are support cards. Well, you have skills that give you plus damage on moves. Okay, so you can do this in a multi-hit build. Skills can also give you shield. So wait, there's a payoff card that cares about how much shield you have. So I can do like a shield build.
Yeah, cool.
Etc. Right? So there are like multiple strategies and multiple sort of synergies across cards. And I'm pretty sure the player is gonna break this in ways I have not imagined at all.
So when the player breaks it, because we're a small team and the balance is fair around us, but when we have thousands and thousands of players basically breaking our game, how can we balance everything?
Yeah, so I mean, pretty pleased with our tools, so it's quick to change, and I think the plan is to have consistent updates to the game, where we basically tweak cards based on stats, like how often do people play cards, but also based on user feedback, of course. We definitely want players to be involved in this and sort of give us feedback about what they feel is not fun, and also what's fun. I think I've seen some companies have been really great at doing something which most other companies don't do, and that's to buff underplayed cards. And it's actually something I think is really great to do, because when you have these, like, this pool of cards, there are certain cards which are always like, well, I'm not picking that, and no one picks the card. Of course, you want to buff this and make it sort of playable at least. So I think I'm actually really looking forward to seeing the players break the cards and break the game, and being part of sort of the community, basically helping develop the game and change the game for an even better game. Because I think we have a pretty great game right now, and but I think it's going to be even better once we get players in.
Yeah, nice tangent to go out on. That was it for us in this developer insight. We are planning, as I said before, to do about 2 videos a month. So if there's anything you want to know about, or you want us to talk about, I can drag in everyone from the office here. Just leave a comment down on the YouTube section, or just join the Discord. Links are in the description. But yeah, see you guys next time.
See ya.